you announced that your government would not listen to those who say, let the virus rip, nor to those who urge a permanent lockdown when you announced those measures. But the phrase, let the virus rip, and the notion that you as a government would let the virus rip was your own phrase, was it not?
Well, so, no, I'm sad to say there were plenty of people who had used the phrase in conversation with me. I was trying to represent a view which was sadly quite widespread, which was that, as you've said already, the approach might be to segment the most vulnerable and to protect them, and to allow the vast majority of the population who are much less vulnerable to gradually acquire immunity. Now,
my question to you was whether or not you, whilst announcing that you would not listen to those who had said "let the virus rip," had used the words used the words yourself. You deny that. So, could you please look at the diaries?
Sorry, what I'm saying is that this was a phrase in common parlance at the time, and remains so.
Sir Patrick Vallance's diary is 273901, page 92.
Yes, sir.
Actually having a discussion, a meeting with the PM about, quote, letting it rip, page...
But I don't wish to be
I'm just going to put...
repetitive, but this is exactly what you'd expect me to be talking about at this stage.
Page 245.
This is June 2020.
I'm going to show you all the ones, Mr. Johnson, out of fairness. The Prime Minister meeting begins to argue for letting it rip, saying, yes, there will be more casualties, but so be it. They've had a good innings. 608. But you acknowledge, of course, that all the breaches proved to have taken place, but the general behaviour took place in Downing Street on your watch.
I do, but I wish to just to stress, and I've always I've been clear for everything I've said. I take full responsibility for everything that the government said or did during the pandemic. I continue to regret very much what happened, but I really want to emphasise, and you talk about the impression, the version of events that has entered the popular consciousness about what is supposed to have happened in Downing Street is a million miles from the reality of what actually happened in Number 10. And I speak on behalf of, I know, of hundreds and hundreds of hard-working civil servants who thought that they were following the rules. And I know, I don't think have been properly characterised by some of the, not just the media coverage, but the dramatic representations that we're now having of this are absolutely absurd. And I want to repeat that. They're a million miles from the reality of what happened. You know, the idea that I didn't, I mean, in your line of questioning, which has been, of course, excellent throughout, but you've dwelt particularly on WhatsApp exchanges and various things that I'm supposed to have said, which indicate that I didn't care. I did care, and I continue to care passionately about it. And I will, if you want, I haven't talked about this before in public, but. And it goes to what you were saying earlier about elderly people and my what you claim is my indifference to the pandemic. I just want to remind you that when I went into intensive care, I saw around me a lot of people who were not actually elderly.
Statement. You made a sweeping assertion that the UK defied the more gloomy predictions. I'm putting to you some cold steel of evidence, and that's what I'm trying to do here.
But I don't believe that I don't believe that your evidence stacks up.
Okay.
And I think that actually, if you look at,
Could we just pause, please, Mr. Weatherby, Mr. Johnson? I'm sorry. I know that emotions are running high, but I have to ask those in the public gallery to keep quiet, whatever their emotions, because it's going to disrupt the proceedings and it affects the live feed, the streaming for other people who are trying to follow. I'm really sorry. I do understand, but it has to stop.
But to put your foot on the accelerator is by implication quite different. He in fact used the word perverse, but I'm just going to suggest to you that it's a different thing to do.
Utmost respect for Professor Edmonds. All I would say is that at the time that the Eat Out to Help Out policy was being aired with me for the first time, it did not seem, it was not presented to me as an acceleration, simply something to make sense of the freedoms that we were already giving. And it was not, I must emphasise, it was not at the time presented to me as something that would add to the budget of risk.
But it wasn't being presented to you by the scientists, was it? It was being presented to you by the Treasury and the Chancellor of the Exchequer. The material makes quite plain that they were the ones who proposed the scheme. The paperwork makes that absolutely plain. And at the same time, your Chief Medical Officer, Professor Sir Chris Whitty, in particular at a COVID-S meeting on the 22nd of June, was saying that in general terms, the proposed easing of restrictions with relation to in relation to indoor hospitality was at the top end of the risk boundary. So you knew that there was an element of risk in this. There had to be a degree of epidemiological gamble. That's logical and fair.
I don't think that I thought that scheme in itself was a particular gamble at the time, and it certainly wasn't presented to me as such, nor am I confident that there is very substantial evidence that it did indeed add to the R, though I defer to what your inquiry has discovered, but I can't see anything that conclusively shows that it made a big difference. At the time, it wasn't presented to me as something that would.